Welcome to Trail Manners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for Trail Manners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails. Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the Trail Manners Podcast, episode number 92. Today, we're going to be talking with Jacob Puzey, who is down here in Utah, fresh out of Calgary, Alberta. So if this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The Trail Manners Podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Trail Manners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome back to another edition of the Trail Manners Podcast. Joel and I took Studio 78 bus up to Eden, Utah, which is just over the mountain through the pass.
This is our longest trip we've ever gone on for an interview, right?
Could be close. We went to Bountiful, Bountiful.
We
right?
did?
Yeah. Or Farmington.
Went to Farmington.
That's far from my house anyway.
Yeah.
So, we got a great guest in Studio 78 with us today. We got Jacob Puzey.
Yes.
All the way down from Calgary, Alberta.
I know.
On vacation.
Yeah, down here for a family reunion.
Nice. How's it going?
So far, so good.
Yeah?
We all still like each other. So. That's good.
That's always a test of the family bond when you
Right.
go far on a road trip like the Griswolds in a van and,
Right.
Kind of get all that going. So Jacob, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're not from Canada.
No.
You're originally from where?
Kind of all over the western United States.
Okay.
I was born in the Four Corners area and then grew up kind of on the panhandle of Texas in New Mexico, but right on the border. Then my family moved up to Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I was introduced to distance running.
Yeah.
And then studied in a couple different places and kind of traveled. So I actually, in Idaho, I went to school for a bit, and then in Hawaii and
Wow.
Whoa.
You really have been a lot of places.
So kind of the western United States is what I call home. And then prior to Calgary, I was in Flagstaff, Arizona. So
Okay.
Wow.
just kind of.
So some hotbed running locations too. Flagstaff,
Right.
Oregon,
Yeah.
obviously. And you said that's where you got into running itself?
Yeah, my family moved there as I was just going into middle school. And up to that point, I thought I was going to be a basketball player and continued on that track for a couple of years and started running actually to try and get in shape for basketball and quickly fell in love with running and just kind of that individual team sport approach versus the strictly team sport element. It didn't hurt that I was like 4'11" and weighed 85 pounds and had a size 13 shoe.
Right.
And so I was pretty awkward out there on the court. And yet somehow I could grind it out on the cross-country course. So I eventually kind of gravitated more towards the running events. So.
Because, imagine it was the running spectrum was pretty big at that time, too, in Oregon.
Yeah.
With the history there and everything else.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I think 3 movies about Steve Prefontaine came out. And so it was very much kind of the renaissance of distance running, and particularly kind of like the Oregon and U.S. distance running, kind of trying to at least mix it up with some of the East Africans and stuff. And so it worked out well. I didn't live in any of the hotbeds. In fact, I was very rural, but it fit in really well with the whole pre-story, rural blue-collar Oregon going up against the big schools and the big cities. And
Right.
and so my brother and I totally latched onto that idea. And it was just like, yeah, if we can outwork the competition, we'll throw down and hopefully it works out. Didn't really work out, but we we bought into it. We drank the Kool-Aid for sure. So,
and a lot of those sweet mustaches were popping, I bet, during that time frame too, right? Any kid in high school that could grow facial hair was working on the pre-mustache, I'm guessing.
For sure.
Yeah. In high school, about the only facial hair that I could grow was a unibrow, but the mustache would come later. So.
Well, the unibrow's like a built-in headband.
Yeah, it is, right?
That's awesome. So when did you find, because you're an accomplished runner, I mean, you've done some pretty amazing things. So when did you find that next gear? I mean, did you run? You went to school at Rick's, is that right?
Yeah, I went to school at Rick's for a couple years there, and from there, even there, like I walked on to the team. I never qualified for the Oregon State track meet, and therefore really wasn't a prospect in most places. And so I walked onto the team at Rick's. They had just won the junior college national championships the year before, and the coach kind of told me I'd probably better off not trying out for that team because I wasn't going to make it. But that's where the blue collar kind of hard nose kind of fit in, and so that's what I did, and eventually made the team and ran 2 seasons of cross country there, and but I was never on top. I mean, I was 17 when I graduated from high school, and some of the guys I was running with, even though it was a 2-year school, were still 22, 23-year-olds men, and I was a very late bloomer. So that was apparent when we moved up to 8K and 10K. So probably not until I was in my 20s, I ran a marathon, and I trained for it just doing mostly easy running and trying to lose weight after not running for 2 years. And I jumped in my first marathon kind of on a dare. And
we hear that all the time.
We do, really.
No, that's totally how it was. Like a climber that lived across the hall was like, "Hey, I'm training for a marathon. Do you want to do it with me?" I was like, "Sure, I haven't run for 2 years and need to get in shape." And so I tried to get in shape and just jumped into the marathon and didn't approach it any differently than I would just a 5K or 10K. And so I didn't know how to not race. And so it was the Salt Lake Marathon. And so about 10K in, I looked around. I was like, man, I've read about that guy in Runner's World, and like I don't really belong here. I'm wearing my Hermiston cross country T-shirt. And,
nice. Hermiston, I've been there. Holy
That's
cow.
where I grew up. Yeah,
so
out in the sticks,
Oregon.
Hermiston, Oregon.
You were seriously. I taught a soccer camp there.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was in college in Oregon.
Yeah. So way out.
Wow. I didn't know anybody else heard of Hermiston.
That's about where it is. Yep.
Wow. Sorry to sidetrack. That's just
a
word I haven't heard forever.
So that's where I grew up. That's where I call home. That's where my parents still are, and so that's where I became a runner. And so I was mixing it up with I can't even remember who it was. There was a guy from Mexico that was kind of like the man in the 80s and 90s, and he was kind of a token invitee to the marathon, and I'm running with him, and I was like, I don't belong here, but I don't know how to run any other pace. This is the only race pace I know. So I did it until about mile 18, and realized then that I should have been drinking and eating along the way. So I experienced kind of the epic bonk, but even that, like somehow I was able to move through the bonk better than I guess most people do. I didn't know anything about it, but finished fairly well, and surprised even my college cross country coach and people who had never run that fast, who were way better runners than me. And so I was like, I guess I could do this. But it took a while to like want to beat people and like actually care about the competition. So it was just sort of like, I'm not very fast. I'm like a 4-speed or 4-cylinder kind of guy, but I can run at the same pace right at the red line for a long time without blowing up. And so it probably wasn't until my mid-20s that I realized that, and still had a few more years of collegiate eligibility and tried to do that. Moved to Hawaii to finish that up, and that was rough. But ran for a few years in Hawaii, and that's kind of when I started training trails. Hadn't really run in the mountains, so to speak, other than dirt roads and things, and liked that. And then, I jumped in the Honolulu Marathon again, kind of on a fluke at the end of my last collegiate cross-country season, just like my farewell to Hawaii, and same thing, just like didn't have any business being in it, but I was in the mix for a long time, and then it's like, I wonder what would happen if I actually trained for one of these things. And So I think that's kind of where it started was running my first couple marathons, realizing that I'll never be a 5K, 10K guy, but I might be able to do marathons. And then a few years later, I realized that there were races longer than a marathon.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah.
So did you have much of the sibling rivalry growing up? Because your brother Tommy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously a quality runner as well.
He's all right.
Yeah, he's all right. So was there any, because you come from a small town, literally, was there much competition between the two of you? Were you on the same page for that part, like running, training, or was it just something you guys did?
Rivalry, not so much. I think I might have felt it more than he did. He's a good guy, and he's just nice. And I was 2 years older than him and 3 grades above him, and so I was young for my grade. He was a little bit older. He was always bigger than me, and I was always the runt. And so I had like little man syndrome, and he was just kind of like just a big guy, and stronger, usually weighed more than me, like even though 2 years older than him. So I probably felt it toward him. He didn't feel it at all toward me. Like I still have regrets about like being such a bad big brother, like because all he ever wanted to do was just hang out with me. And I was like, come on, man, like just let me go do my thing. And he just wanted to hang with me, whether it was running or with my friends or anything. And if it wasn't until high school, like until we were teammates, that it was cool to hang out with my little brother. And part of it was selfish. Like I'd never qualified for the state cross country meet, and it was my senior year, and my only shot was if my brother was right there with me. And so it's like, I guess you can hang out.
You can hang out with me.
We can hang out and beat those guys. Like, just make sure we stay ahead of them, and then we can hang out. And, and that's he will do. He's fiercely loyal, and it's like, whatever it takes. Yeah, you want me to ask my friends to come to it too? And so like overnight, we went from being kind of like contenders in our conference to like we could run with anyone in the state, and it was a pretty good. There were two teams ranked top 10 in the nation in Oregon that year.
Wow!
And we were in the mix, and
wow.
And it was only because of him and his friends. Like, had nothing to do with me. It was 100%. Tommy buys in, and he's all in.
He's all in, and that's
so
cool.
It was cool. And so since then, I was like, you know what? He's not that bad.
I'll let him tag along a
we
little
can
bit
be
more.
friends.
Yeah, we can hang out.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot's transpired since then. I mean, you had from Hawaii. What did you do after that? You're out of school. Did you continue the run thing? Get into the marathons? Did you shift gears to the what do you call it? Being get a job, being responsible, I guess,
Yeah. That's probably where Tommy and I differ. Like I've always been kind of type A. I'm trying to get out of that. Like I've spent the last decade trying to like lose that part of myself, but that's all the ducks in a row kind of planner kind of thing.
Right.
And we end up often with similar results, but he's just kind of like shoot like by the seat of his pants kind of guy. And so I tried to do that by moving to Hawaii, and that was unpredictable. But still, as soon as I graduated, I got a salaried position with benefits, and so I actually moved back to Hermiston, and never in my 5 or 10 year plans, but that's what I ended up doing. My
So where's Hermiston? I don't know where it's at.
It's
help me out.
It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's been a long. I drove by there.
Drove.
Yeah. But it's I don't know, the top part of Oregon.
Yeah.
It's and it's literally in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So it's northeastern Oregon. It's It's almost equidistance between
nice
Spokane, Seattle, Bend, Portland, and Boise.
Okay.
And so it's kind of a hub. There's some highways that intersect there, and railroad tracks and rivers, and so that's what brought my family there. But it's also that's where I grew up. But it's 3 hours from anywhere.
Right.
3 to 4 hours from anywhere. So
and I think I was there in like early 91 maybe.
Okay.
And we did a soccer camp all week.
Yeah.
And for a bunch of college guys, there was not a lot to do.
Oh man.
There wasn't a lot as far as eating goes. I think there might have been a bowling alley if I remember right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was kind of like bowling alley nacho night every night.
Bowling alleys, pizza, nachos, fries. Whatever. That was probably the best restaurant in town for a long time.
Yeah, and that's what we remembered about it. And it's like, when they sit, because every week they'd send us different places, and like, hey, Eric, you take your group, you're going to Hermiston, and I was like, I don't even know where this is. So we got there, and I'm like, man, am I in trouble? You know, I mean, people are going to Bend and the coast, and I'm going to and it was hot. It was July. Yep. It was super hot.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, you mentioned it, and it's what kind of rang through is the kids at our clinic. There wasn't a lot of kids. It wasn't a big populous town for soccer, but man, those kids work their butts off.
Yeah.
I mean, you call for a break, and they're looking at you like, we don't need a water break.
Nah.
You know, and we're over there like, yeah, we do. Like 30 minutes worth, you know?
Yeah, the coaches are dying, but the kids are ready to roll.
Yeah, they were hardcore. So that's when
cool.
you say the blue collar, that's that town for sure. So what's Hermiston? I mean, what's their, you say rivers, and is it like agricultural?
It's between two mountain ranges, and so it kind of gets inversion during the winter, and it's hot as hell during the summer, and so really long growing seasons. Everything grows there. Volcanic soil, plus there's all these tributaries, plus the Columbia and the Snake. And really well irrigated.
You said railroad going through?
Yeah. So it's a railroad town. It's right along the river.
Right.
My dad manages the port of Umatilla, and so
nice.
So that's the railroad and the barges and the highway system where you just take something off of one form of transportation, put it on the other, and send it to the other.
Right.
So there's UPS and FedEx and Walmart, and that's just kind of where the hubs are right there. So, but yeah, that's most of the working. If you don't work in agriculture, you work in distribution.
Or at the bowling alley.
Yeah, or at the bowling. Or you just bowl.
Yeah, or you just bowl. You just get your shirt on with your name Bud right on the name tag. So I'm guessing when you moved from Hawaii back to Hermiston to get your ducks in a row, it wasn't the bowling alley.
It wasn't the bowling alley.
Okay.
No. So yeah, my high school track coach had passed away, and so my high school cross country coach, who was another father figure and a mentor through high school, my best friend through high school, basically. Like I had no potential, and somehow he saw something in me, and he kind of got me on the right track. And so he said, hey, I'm going to try and be the head track coach, but we need a distance coach now. You want to move back? And I had been kind of volunteering out in Hawaii. We only had a cross country team. So during track season, there was a local North Shore team, mostly Polynesian kids. Again, phenomenal athletes, really hard workers. We tried to create a distance program out there, and just fell in love with coaching in that community and small town vibe. But I almost felt guilty. I was like, I'm doing it out here. And when my coach asked, I was like, man, just ask me to do anything. I don't really want to. That wasn't in my plans to move back to Hermiston. But at the same time, it was like, he did it for me. He moved there from the coast and brought his family out there, and he invested in me and countless other kids. And that was our ticket out of there, And so I did the same thing for about 8 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went back and taught basically every subject that they asked me to teach, which was about every subject. And
what do you have for this class, Mr. Puzey? Who's this class, Mr. Puzey?
Yeah. It was actually really fun. Like it was super stimulating because I a lot of teachers complain about having to prep for different things, but it was like I was learning as I went, and that's when I learned to kind of shoot from the hip. It was like, yeah, I think I took a class on this in college, and I guess if I can pass a test, I can teach the class, and so I did, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I loved coaching those kids. Like you said, like I learned way more about running and about myself and about life from a lot of those kids, and by that point, it had the demographics had changed even more, and so you basically own a farm or you live on or you work on a farm, and so it was hard-working farm kids, kids of farmers, and it was either you do a sport or you come home and you work. So it was like, okay, we'll do all the sports you ask us to do. And
I love cricket.
Yeah,
cricket. Exactly. Or the migrant kids, and those kids will bleed through their eyes for you. And again, fiercely loyal and just like their parents. They felt like they owed it to their parents to do something with their lives and make something of themselves. And so I don't know that I coached much, but I basically just said, like, this is where we're at. This is where they're at. We've got to get to the finish line faster than they do. And we did. And it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And so you're there for 8 years, and then you made another jump somewhere.
Yeah. I had always planned on continuing my studies and law school, medical school. eventually by that time, I'd worked with an Indigenous community in the area on some language preservation and stuff, and so I decided to go back to work on a PhD in linguistic anthropology.
Wow.
I basically was kind of done with the 9 to 5, and my brother had moved to Flagstaff, and so I was like, okay, what's an excuse for quitting my job that's kind of noble and that will allow me to go hang out with Tommy? And so he had been kind of globetrotting, but he'd finally moved back to the States, and it looked like he was going to be in Flag for a while. So I was like, okay, I'm going to move to Flagstaff, and I'm going to go to grad school. And so I basically saved through the recession and stuff like that, and tried to fix our house up. And then once it was safe to
get out.
To get out, I did, and sold the house and just tried to pay for grad school off of savings and grants and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I did for a couple more years, and got to hang out with him. But he was also in grad school by that time, and so we actually didn't see each other much. Like we'd see each other every once in a while on campus and be like, "Hey,
I remember you."
Yeah. We look really familiar. I haven't seen you in like 6 months. Where you been? So our kids hung out more than we did. But it's good.
Asking your kids, so how's my brother doing?
Exactly.
How's Uncle Tommy doing?
Yeah. That's pretty much how it went. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. But it was good, and that's when I started online coaching. Was down in a little bit before getting to Flagstaff, but that was kind of how I got that set up.
Sorry, there's just we did a show last week in a parking lot, and a rattlesnake came out from under the bus. Now we look out the window, and there's a deer. So
Yeah.
I like this view better.
I do too.
I grew up with rattlesnakes in New Mexico, and wasn't the least bit afraid of them. But then once you get away from them, I'm deathly afraid of snakes now, because every time I see them now, I'm not expecting to see them.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's just like, we used to be friends, but now you're unpredictable. So no, we can't be friends
hang
anymore.
out.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not.
Yeah.
So you got into the online coaching in Flagstaff, and in Flagstaff again, I mean, it doesn't need really a pump or anything, but it's like a mecca for
is.
running. Period. People go there just to run.
Yeah.
So when you
know.
moved there for grad school, were you being structured with your training, or were you just running for fun? Were you actually running at all at that point?
Yeah. So at that point, while I was in Oregon and coaching, I basically trained with my kids. Sometimes, depending on the dynamics of the family, I'd run in the mornings before practice, sometimes with other kids.
Right.
But most of my training was just train with high school 5K training, and then maybe a long run on the weekend if we weren't on the road, and then started jumping in trail races after a while. And that's kind of when I made my transition to ultras and things. When I moved to Flag, most of my training was run commuting, just back and forth to school.
Right.
Or bike commuting, or however I could fit it in. Like I did, try and get a place near trails, and it's pretty hard to get a place in Flag that's not near trails. But
Good point.
But I got it set on, like a good route where I could run on the urban trail system to school and back. And
Okay.
Kind of. But even that, I did a lot less of that than I thought I was going to be doing. It was
Well, when you're a PhD student, there's time for nothing other than that.
Yeah, I was doing that and a grad assistant and working full time as an online coach. So I didn't really sleep or run or do much other than that, just work.
Right.
So where along this timeline did you meet Amy?
Yeah,
Your wife.
Yeah, my wife Amy.
Was it in Hermiston or was it in college or?
Why?
Yeah, no. We actually met at TranSelkirks only a few years ago. So she and I were both there, and our kids were with their other parents, and we were both talking about how challenging it is to be single parents, and but we basically were talking about our kids, and we met at the charging station where we were charging our phones so we could call our kids and talk to our kids.
Okay.
And then a couple weeks later, I was invited to run a race up there in Canada that she kind of directs, but she had someone directing that particular event who is also the same director of the TranSelkirks run. His name's Kevin Huda McDonald, and so he invited me up there to run a race, and then we realized that it was the same race series that she oversees and that she directs at a national level, and that we were going to end up getting to see each other. So it hasn't been that long. It's a couple years. So.
Okay.
So you just met her on the trail circuit.
Yeah.
You're a lucky dog.
Exactly.
That doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. I think the thing that worked in our favor was that neither of us went there looking or expecting to find. We were both like so done with
Stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff.
It was kind of like, okay, we're going to take a 1 week break, do Trans Rockies, and then get back to working full time and
Right.
being full time parents and
Right.
just like paying the bills and just, but yeah, so Trans Rockies was like the week vacation from life.
Right.
And yeah, we met on the second to last day. She was actually out on course. She ran the 3-day and won that. And then she stuck around to help out. And a lot of the crew, actually Trans Rockies, the company is based in Calgary as well.
Okay.
And so they were down doing the event in Colorado. And so she's there and friends with a lot of, we kind of share the same crew between Trans Rockies and
Right.
Five Peaks. So she was down there and helping out. And my brother took a wrong turn on the second to last day, and it was a rough day, and she was out there. She was one of the first people to find him kind of as he was getting back on the trail. Covered with blood and teeth knocked out and stuff. And
So you get in a fight with a bear?
I was gonna say.
What
turned
happened
out-
to him?
too many rocks. Yeah,
Too many rocks?
He went down. There was a false summit on. It was basically once you got to the top, you just bombed down into Vale, and so
Right.
we thought we were at the top, and he bombed a little too soon and ran I don't know 5K at least downhill, the wrong hill,
Right.
and realized that he only had a little bit of water in his bladder to start because he was going to fill up at the top and
Right.
didn't quite find that aid station.
Sure.
And so he was dead, and so he was kind of delirious and looking around for signs and flags and didn't see any, but then tripped on a rock while he was trying
Looking
to
around.
ate some rocks and
Oh.
busted his nose. And so yeah, by the time he made it back to the trail, it ended up, I think it was supposed to be like a 20-mile day. It ended up being like a 50K day.
Oh, yeah.
With about an extra 3 hours that we weren't planning on. So he was in rough shape, and she was there. But again, it was just like, you meet people. We hadn't been in that position yet, like needing that emergency assistance. But you meet people in races, and just kind of like, yeah, cool. She was fun to talk to. That was cool that she cares about her kids. And, and then we hung out. We saw each other again the next night and hung out and talked a little bit more. But it was never like, oh man, let's figure out how to make this work long distance.
Right.
Like, we were so not interested.
Because you were in Flagstaff.
Yeah, I was
still?
living in
She was
Flagstaff
up
trying to
in
figure out
Calgary, right?
Yeah, she was in Calgary, and I was in Flagstaff, and I was struggling through grad school, and the research that I'd been doing that summer didn't really pan out the way I'd hoped it to, and so I was like, okay, how am I gonna
salvage this?
yeah, how am I gonna? Yeah, I had enough to write about, but it wasn't what I wanted to write about.
Right.
And,
At that point, you're losing like that motivation.
yeah, and yeah, I was going through the disillusion of my previous marriage and dealing
Right.
with all that, and so at no point was I even like, yeah, sign me up for this. You know,
Yeah.
can we get a few more lawyers involved, please?
Oh.
So sorry, just being honest, we weren't planning on anything developing out of that, but we connected about a month later when I went up for a race in Canada, and by that point it was kind of like, okay, we're not in fairy tale land anymore of Trans Rockies, and like, you have a job, I have a job, we have lives.
Right.
So as we started talking, it was like, yeah, this probably isn't gonna ever work out, but somehow it did. And
good for you.
we're together
That's
now.
cool.
So,
Nice.
yeah.
And so did you move from Flag to Calgary?
Yeah, fairly quickly after that point. Like, I was kind of living in my truck, and then looking to develop my brother's garage into a studio apartment, and trying to pay for 2 places as a grad student. And
Right.
like,
It's
I
kind of
can't
tough.
do that
Yeah.
off of one income, and so I was trying to figure out how to do that. And then we started talking, and there were opportunities up there, both professionally, and it was kind of nice to be with someone that liked me. So I was like, all right, yeah, we could, yeah, I can move up there. And so
Calgary's pretty rad, right?
oh yeah, it's incredible. And in fact, at the time, she was actually living in Canmore, which is between Calgary and Banff.
Right.
And so it's like the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life, and I'm not joking. Like
Right.
Canmore is?
Canmore is.
Okay.
I think it's prettier than Banff. I think it's prettier than. It's just an old mining town. And,
Right.
And her parents moved there 40 years ago and kind of built up the town. Her dad's
Wow.
a carpenter, and so he's actually built a lot of the houses in the town. And but the mountains are just every degree that you turn around, it's just a panoramic view of a different mountain and a different
Right.
face, and then the water is crystal clear. Like I thought Patagonia was the prettiest place I'd ever been, and then I went there for the race, and I was just like, huh,
Yeah.
is this real? Like that water is real? It's really that blue? And so anyway, she was there at first, and then we eventually relocated to Calgary once I got up there. And
Wow.
it's cheaper to have a house for 5 kids in Calgary than it is to have a house for 5 kids in Canmore. So,
True. Good
Yeah.
point.
but it's right there. We're as kind of the last exit to get on the highway to go to
Okay.
Canmore and Banff, and you can see the Rocky Mountains from our place. So it's a beautiful place. Yep.
Right on.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, because I'm not saying a lot of people, but one thing, I'm going to throw this little tidbit out just to kind of give an idea of where you're at. I don't say now, but it really is. So, this past December, you were down in Orlando, right, for the run event.
Yeah.
And so, how did this come about? You did a world record for the fastest 50-mile run on a treadmill. Okay, so the average pace was 5:56 per mile for 50 miles. That's and it shattered the previous record by
Half
an
hour?
hour. Right?
Yeah, close to an hour.
Yeah. So you finished your 50 miles in 4:57, 45, and the record before you was 5:57,
My goodness.
31. So we got seconds. Not quite an hour. It's a few seconds off. This is where I gotta understand, where did the idea come for this? Because to me, honestly, sounds miserable, right?
There's not enough beer to make that sound
There's
fun.
not enough anything in the world for me to even attempt something. I get on a treadmill and I'm like, yeah, that was easy. Is it like a quarter of a mile?
Yeah, quarter of a mile, I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm
because
out.
we get so much cold here. That's the only time you want to hit a treadmill.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we're watching this, because it was kind of streamed and Instagrammed and everything else in the run community, where did this idea come from? Because this is something you set out to do. This isn't by accident.
Yeah. There were kind of a couple different motives or kind of inspirations, I guess. To be quite honest, the number one inspiration was that it was getting cold and Amy was saying, hey, we should get a treadmill. And I had owned and moved and my own treadmill and other people's treadmills and tried to repair treadmills that I'd broken, and so she starts looking at on Kijiji, which is like the equivalent of Craigslist in Canada.
Kijiji, I like it.
I was just like, we are not buying a used treadmill, and they are heavy. But if we're gonna get a treadmill, we both run a lot, so let's get a good treadmill, and at least one that's gonna last a couple years, because they're really hard to move in and move out.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
awkward.
Yeah,
They're the worst.
Mine's stuck in the same room for 10 years.
Yeah.
and a lot of people don't even use them. So it's like,
Right.
if we're gonna invest in it, let's get a good one and let's use it. So let's get a good enough one that we'll want to use. And so we started looking at like ticket price. I was like,
Yeah.
that's a lot. And then we also started kind of looking at the used ones, and even those were fairly expensive, especially considering having to go pick it up and having to install it and hope that it works, and how much it would cost to make the fixes. So fortunately I run for Ultra, which is owned by a parent company actually here in Utah, Logan, Icon, and Icon owns a couple treadmill companies as well, or their subsidiaries are Nordic Track and Proform.
Right.
I pitched the idea to Icon and those two companies and to Ultra. I knew that there had been at the outdoor retailer show kind of the uphill challenge and stuff like that. And I'd actually talked to a couple other people. I saw that Mike Wardian ran the 50K treadmill record on a cruise, and then didn't, and realized it after the fact. And so he's got like in a bucket. I think he put himself in a cooler of ice, and then the next morning got up and broke it.
Yeah.
Really broke it, which is just unreal. The guy's just a freak of an athlete.
Just after Western States. Did you see? What was it? It was Coop. It was Coop. He was saying for most of you, recovery wise, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And then he goes, oh, now if you're Michael Wardian, the next day you need to go run a 5:38 mile.
Yeah.
That dude is crazy good.
He is.
He's such the outlier.
Yeah, he really is. Like he recovers really well. So I was super impressed by what he did. But then I kind of did the math, and I knew my body, and it was like, even at the finish line of a marathon, I can feel like I've gone to the well, and I still feel like I could keep going, kind of thing.
Right.
Or that the amount of attrition that I experience isn't quite as much as others experience, I guess. And so I figured if I fueled right, I could just sustain that for another 5 miles, 8K, whatever, for 50K. So at first I was thinking 50K, and so we pitched it as a challenge. And I talked to Mario Mendoza as well in Bend. We were on a run once, and he was kind of like, yeah, I'd like to do that too. And so I initially presented it like, let's do the uphill challenge, but flat, and like a 50K challenge, but let's do it somewhere, but a competition like brand versus brand and runner versus runner, but it wouldn't work in Utah because it's at altitude. And so if you're really going for a record and you're trying to get everything out of you, try and do it at sea level. So at first it was going to be Austin. That's typically where the running event has been. And I was like, yeah, I kind of wanted to go to Austin. The 1 year it moved to Orlando. Yeah. But then I was like, Orlando's not going to be bad coming from Calgary. So, I pitched it probably a year in advance, and then it kind of got accepted maybe 6 weeks before the running event. And so I wasn't planning on it. And so it turned out that it was going to maybe be me and Cal Neff. We were kind of the only ones that were still on board a month out. And then his mother-in-law got really sick and actually passed away the week of the running event. And so we were going to do 50K, and Mike showed up and was just going to be like, hey, I'm not going to let this go easy, And so he was there, and but then Cal wasn't able to do it, and so I looked at the other times, and I didn't know if I could do it solo, and so I looked at the other times, and I had run close to the record on trail before, just on the PCT at the Mount Hood 50, I'd run like 6:09, I think, and so I was like, if I don't have to stop and I don't have to carry a pack and it's not rolling, I could probably get close to that. And so my plan was honestly just like set it right at the pace and then maybe toward the end pick it up a little bit. And we started going, and very early on, the pace, like my knees kept hitting the front of the treadmill, and so I just tried to put it at a pace that felt comfortable, and comfortable started getting faster and faster, and then toward the end, Amy actually wasn't even there. She was at the hotel trying to get some races opened, because she wasn't going to need to be there for like 3 or 4 more hours. And then Chris at Ultra was like, hey, is Amy going to be here? And I was like, I don't know why. And he's like, well, you've only got like 10 miles left. And I was like, maybe we should call her. And so he actually hands me my phone, and I call her, and I'm like, hey, do you want to come down here? Might be good for a photo op and stuff. And so she came down, and she was with our daughter, and at that point it was sort of like, I could drag this out, but I was starting to fatigue, and so I just like turned it up as fast as I could go, and it was just like, what, the sooner I hit 50 miles, the sooner I'm done. So I was just kind of like eyes rolling back in my head and just like, I don't even know how fast this is. I'm just gonna keep doing it. And
you're running 5-minute pace on that.
It started getting down to there, and then I'd kind of do it like fartlek, so I'd go as hard as I could for a while, and then it was like, okay,
back it off a little.
But then the easy was 6-minute pace, and so I was like, okay, I can do this. But so it was a total fluke. Like I didn't train specifically for it. I had no clue what I was doing. It just felt good that day, and then after a while, it was just like, get it done. And then people came up and they're like, if you would have gone 1,000 meters more, you would have had the 80K record, and then if you would have stayed on for an hour, you could have got the 100K. I was like, I was done at about 70K, and I'm glad I got that last hour, and so it worked out. It was a good day.
That's amazing.
So you
that you didn't have specific training for that, and you still were able to do it.
Because I can't wrap my brain around. I really can't. Because you're sitting there saying, the faster I go, the faster I'm done. I've said that so many times during a race.
Gosh, yeah.
But when I'm looking at my pace, it's 10 minutes.
Right.
Like, if I can go a little faster, then I can get done faster. And you're talking faster at like a 5:30.
Yeah.
It was I honestly just felt really good. I think it's kind of that ducks in the row kind of thing. Like, if I can remove all the variables, that's what I try and do when I race. Like, and trail racing is a challenge for me because you can't remove all the variables.
No.
But that was the other thing. It was like, I wonder what I could do if I really were able to control all the variables. And so I've got my water there. I've got, my fuel there. I can just have it all out there on display, and I can just grab it when I need it. I don't have to wait till I'm at an aid station or carry extra or anything like that. It was just like have it all there and control it. And so I try not to think of myself as a control freak, but when I do race, I feel like I tend to do best when I am able to just like take care of everything else, and then just gun goes off and all I have to think about is running, or if I have a timer on my watch, fueling or whatever. But even there, I didn't even have to do that. It was just it's there. If I need it, take it as soon as I feel like I need it. And so it was actually kind of fun to just see what I could do without any other variables.
So what were you fueling with for the treadmill challenge?
A combination of things. So I was using First Endurance, EFS, and water. So I had one bottle of water and one bottle of First Endurance.
Okay.
That was for probably about the first 50K.
All right.
And then I was also taking like the EFS liquid shot.
Liquid shot. Okay.
They're gel, but it's not a gel. It's in a flask.
Right.
So I think I went through 2 of those.
2 flasks?
2 flasks.
Okay.
And I like to get as many calories as I can through liquid, so I was running it pretty rich in the drink itself. Right. But I still was taking salt caps as well. There's no need to, but I just as like a kind of out of habit, and
that's
just
your
make
thing.
Sure I'm getting as much sodium as I can, because once I cramp, I'm done, and
it's
so
over.
Just, just try and avoid that. But then after about 50K, I just wanted something different, and so we put Pepsi in one bottle, and I ate 2 bags of chips. So crumpled them up into like just crumbs.
Right.
And then I
just right in the pie hole. Yeah.
Dumped the crumbs into my mouth. And because after a while you get hungry, you don't just want calories, you actually want something in your gut.
Stomach.
Yeah.
So, and potatoes are like starchy and they absorb everything, and fatty and amazing. So
salty goodness.
Yummy.
Yeah.
So what's your go-to flavors for the EFS? Like the electrolyte drink. What's your go-to flavor?
I kind of mix it up, but fruit punch seems to kind of just do it for me. There are a lot. So the lemon lime is good, and so is the grape. And I like those, and sometimes we'll mix it in with other things as well. But I also so I really like that I know what it is, like that I've got everything I need in that.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes you want some carbonation.
Yeah.
You're like, I just want corn
Something
syrup.
different.
I don't care about all the electrolytes and magnesium. I just want Pepsi.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. That's right. You roll into an aid station that got Coke, you're like, oh, that sounds good right now.
Yeah.
Fill me up.
Exactly. Mostly just to settle my stomach. Like it just kind of, but it does have that kind of, gives you a little bit of a buzz, so to speak, with the caffeine, and it's a different flavor.
So it kind of started because you wanted a treadmill, and so this is where it all started. You were just looking at treadmills, like, if we can pitch it, maybe they'll hook us up.
Yeah, exactly. So here's where it got hard. Honestly, the biggest challenge was
Here's where it got hard.
Moving the treadmill in the house.
That was hard.
Yeah.
So
did you get the treadmill before or after the 50
that was
miles?
the challenge. So a couple weeks before the outdoor retailer, or no, before the running event, treadmill shows up on our porch, and it's a big treadmill. Like it was like they had
like legit.
like a truck dropped it, like needed the lift and stuff like that. And
yeah.
I was just like, I'm the only one here that can we back your truck into our basement and move it in that way? And the guy was like, no. It was like, if I pay extra, can we do that? Or will you help me? And I can't. And
holy cow.
So I threw it out on Facebook, and most people just kind of laughed. They're like, yeah, good luck with that one, and this is meant to be as complimentary as possible. And so it's not racist at all. I grew up around Mexicans. One guy that I have coached and trained that's from Mexico that lives in Calgary, I've trained him for the last 3 years.
Oh,
I was like,
awesome.
I'm there.
Yeah.
Some guy I'd never even met, who's also a Mexican expat in Canada, shows up,
they did it. Like, they wouldn't even let me. I mean, I tried to help. I tried to pretend that I was
Sure.
like strong and knew how to work. And
Let's pretend I was strong.
Well, you're so much taller than they are, right? So they got that lower center of gravity.
no, but they
right?
show up with like the belts to put around.
Are
their
you
backs
serious?
And, like
Right
full
on.
on. Like, we're
like,
gonna move
ready
this
to
thing.
go.
like the hooks on their belts. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Then they want to set it up and try it out and make sure it's all calibrated and
yeah.
stuff like that. It was just like,
Calibrated.
you guys are like real friends. Nothing
Right.
against my other friends that were there, but I'm relatively new to the area.
Nothing
and-
against my neighbor.
He went into Facebook that day and started unfriending all these people that didn't show up.
No, but I mean that's what my experience has been like since day one, like my whole life. Like, you ask someone to help, and the people that will help are the people that that's just in their culture.
Yeah,
You
right.
show up if someone needs help. You show
there.
up and you do it, and that's what they did. And so I now have a treadmill in the right place, because of that.
Calibrated,
calibrated,
set up.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we got it all set up, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And then I ran a few times on it in training, and then showed up in Orlando. And so
Were they the same treadmill at your
same
house?
treadmill,
Okay.
yeah. And so it was we were looking at some Nordic track ones, but I guess the Proform model has the ability to run faster at a flat rate, and it also has incline and decline
Decline would
options.
be cool.
Yeah, so it really is like the perfect treadmill to train for trails and other things, unless you're just training like absolute uphill or something like that.
Right.
And it's called the Boston Marathon treadmill, so that you can practice running the Boston Marathon course, the downhill and then the uphill and stuff like that. So I trained on that, and then I got to the running event, and most of how I passed the time, like rather than listening to stuff or watching stuff, people just came up and were talking to me. And so about halfway through, Eric Sensman, who's a friend from Flagstaff and just from, part of being in the community, actually TranSelkirks
He's
as
got
well.
that creepy mustache right now.
He does.
doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he the one that was going to cut Walmsley's hair?
Yeah, he did. That was the bet. And so he's the one that shaved Walmsley's head after
He had the creepy mustache.
Yeah.
So he shows up, and he's like, so what's your goal? Like, what are you shooting for? And I was like, the hard part is I already reached my goal. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I already got a treadmill. It's in my basement. And he's like, so
I'm kind of done.
yeah. So he's like,
come
so
on
what
out
do you
here.
do? What do you do if you don't finish? I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're not going to show up and take their treadmill back. So
Yeah.
I've got my treadmill. And so that was honestly like, I pride myself in, my word is my bond kind of thing. I'm a man of my word, but it's like when things started getting, hard and kind of dark that last mile that last hour, and I don't even know what was going on. It's like, I could just as easily step off the treadmill and be done, and probably have a treadmill in my basement. But if, you don't want to be that guy that always pitches ideas and doesn't follow through. So I was like, hey, I got to finish this. And so it really wasn't in the plans to try and really hammer it or go for anything spectacular. It was just like, go for the record, bring some people to the ultra booth, maybe show off a treadmill a little bit,
Right.
create some momentum, but mostly get a treadmill. And that was my number one goal, and got that. So worked out. Amy's happy, I'm happy,
And you're never going to move.
yeah,
You're not
never
moving
gonna
the
move.
treadmill.
Or I'm gonna contact Eric and Adolfo and ask them to come and help me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey guys, guess what?
Yeah, exactly.
We're having a moving party.
They get comped entry to all of our races anytime they want.
Oh,
now,
see,
so-
now all your friends that didn't show up are like, oh man,
I know.
if I would have known, I would have come up.
But they're the kind of guys that want to volunteer anyway. They're like, yeah,
Right.
well, can I at least show up 4 hours before and help you set up before the race? So they're good guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we kind of briefly touched on it a little bit, but I think it's important because we had an off-mic conversation, but you are a coach for Peak Run Performance is the name of your service, and that's your website. Give us a little, I don't know, idea. So you've been coaching for quite a while then.
Yeah. Basically since I was in college. I started, I think, in 2004, like officially coaching, kind of getting paid to coach, I guess.
So 13 years in now.
Yeah, it's been a while. And I've always kind of tried to be a student of the sport. I was an English teacher, but I honestly think the only way I was literate through high school was because I read so much about running and cared so much about it. So I really like running and the science behind it and the methodology, and I've tried to kind of glean a little bit from every coach that I've had, and I've been fortunate to have some really good coaches and some maybe not so good coaches, but even they had some
pieces that
some
you
pieces that I learned from, so and I'm not afraid to ask questions. So anyone who knew what they were doing or who I thought knew what they were doing, I just picked their brains at clinics or at coaching camps that I take my athletes to or that I was at. So yeah, I've really just been it's been a lifetime of just trying to figure out this sport. And what I found is that most of the people that I work with now, it is remotely, it's online, and a lot of them are adults like me, and they've got busy lives, whether it's work or family or dogs or travel or whatever. It's but they also have goals. They want to do something and challenge themselves and kind of figure out what they're made of, and just kind of have some purpose and meaning in what they're doing. And running is a good avenue for that. And so I do my best to try and help each person find their balance and find a sustainable way of reaching their peak, whenever that is, or their peaks or whatever. But yeah, my goal as a coach is to help people become lifelong runners. That's my goal as an athlete. I want to be connected to this sport forever. I feel closer to. I'm at a family reunion right now, and I'm out doing a podcast about running.
Out in a van on the side of the road
during the family reunion.
Yeah, because I feel like this is my family too. We're a big extended family, and I've been to Western states during the same weekend as this family reunion, and chose Western over.
It's bigger. Western's a bigger family, so you got to go where the bigger family.
Good
is,
point.
Right?
and the cool part is my family gets that. They know that this is a big part of who I am and what I love, and so I like to try and help other people find what works for them. And every family situation is different, every work situation is different, but really just help people enjoy it. And it can be kind of a flash in the pan sort of thing with some people, and if I get the sense that that's all it is like, yeah, I want to run a marathon and then I want to be done, it's like, I'll try and help you, but I want to try and help you get there and be healthy, and not hate it by the time you get there. Because I've been there too. Like there were times in college where I didn't know. I took a 2-year break and was happy to take a 2-year break because and it was nothing against my coach. It was me. It was the way that I was training, and I was so hard on myself. And I wanted to earn a scholarship so bad that by the time I earned a scholarship, I was like, man,
You're done.
I'm done.
I don't think I even like running anymore. And it took me a long time to, even after running the marathon, to like care enough to like train and want to be good at it, to see what I could really do. So I feel like I've gone through a lot of ups and downs and quite my own evolution, and not that I need to impose that on other people, but through my own experiences and then the experiences of people that I've been fortunate to train with. And
then that makes it more relatable, though.
Yeah.
From the client's perspective.
Yeah.
That story, you've gone through it, that you know what they're experiencing.
Yeah, I hope to. And to be quite frank, my background in university was basically study everything that couldn't make money. And so, so I was like, oh, that's a cool philosophy class. Hey, anthropology. Yeah, I should learn a couple of more obscure indigenous languages.
Yeah.
And you never know when it's going to come back, like the bell bottoms, right?
The bell bottoms.
And so I feel like a lot of the athletes that I work with are almost like mentors for me. A lot of them are business owners and and maybe even small business, and they get it. And so it's kind of cool because we support one another. We figure out how to help each other through this this experience that I definitely wasn't prepared for, at least academically, for this. So it's fun. It's a fun challenge.
So do you do a vetting process if someone approaches you looking for coaching? Is there like a process where you go through some Q&A to see if it's going to be that right fit for you? Because like you said, you don't want to be a flash in the pan. You're willing to help. But even for them, if they have the wrong set of goals, I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but goals that maybe aren't attainable, or maybe they just, like you said, hey, I have a marathon of 4 weeks. Can you get me there?
Yeah.
So do you have
that's our training philosophy.
Yeah, well, it works for us.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we have our 100K this weekend.
That's right.
Let's start ramping up our training last week.
We got to hurry and we got to cram for this test.
We're tapering up. That's what we're calling it.
We call it. We taper up.
We're tapering up.
We're trying, because most people as a coach, you're like, you get to taper into a race, but people get ornery, they get cranky.
Right.
We're tapering right through it.
Right up to it. Yeah.
That's the way it works. And then
Yes.
your rest period right after is smooth.
It is because you're really
Yeah,
rest.
you're tired. So
Yeah.
it's just the gallon ice cream challenge after it's over type thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So do you do that process so you have
Yeah.
that right fit?
Yeah, usually people will contact me through some sort of, whether it be email or social media of some sort. Fortunately, my brother has quite a following, and a lot of people contact him, and then he passes them on to me. So it's a double vetted process. It's through his beard. So
That's the filter.
the filter is his beard,
That's
and then
so awesome.
it gets
The
to
beard
me,
filter.
and then
This guy's not going to work
and
for
then
me.
I
Go to
filter
my
it
brother.
through my unibrow, and eventually,
The double Puzey hair filter. I like it.
yeah, we definitely try and actually meet the people and connect with them, but there's usually a little back and forth via email, and I have people fill out a pretty thorough questionnaire to get a sense of who they are and what makes them click and what their goals are, and yeah, I'll ask point blank, if someone gives me either what I would say is maybe a really ambitious or maybe not unrealistic, but maybe the time frame is a little bit too truncated. I say, can we work toward that? But what are we going to do? We need some time to build toward that.
Right.
But also sometimes people will send me this list of like, there's 52 weeks in the year, and I'm going to do 120 races. And it's like, Mike Wardian can do that, but he's not an athlete that I coach, and
Right.
Friend, but not an athlete I coach. And most people don't work that way.
Yeah.
And so if what we're working on is not just doing cool events, but if this is really your goal, we're probably going to have to cut out a lot of those races. And are you willing to do that so that you can actually get in the long runs on the weekends and train? But so yeah, there's some back and forth, and I try to give just about everyone a chance, but usually they figure out, or I figure out fairly early on, that it's either going to work or not work, and that doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it doesn't.
does.
And it usually is better sooner rather than later for
Right, yeah.
everyone to just like, this probably isn't going to work.
So do you have like a max threshold of athletes you work with? Like, hey, this is as much as I can do, or is it just kind of you're in a situation where you have time to take whoever comes through?
There are times of the year where it gets pretty busy, and then there are times of the year where after Boston everyone's taking a break, or after Western, or some big iconic race where a lot of people are training for, whether it's that race or those weekends or that time of year seem to be really popular times of year.
Right.
And so sometimes I may be carrying a little bit, my roster's a little deeper than other times, and so sometimes it can feel pretty busy, but then other times it's maybe lower than what
You would like.
maybe not so much. That's the hard part, and this isn't to knock other services, but there are some professions that are kind of notorious for like setting up an appointment or setting it up so that people are paying to pay, and even when they're not getting the services, so to speak. So you may go get treated by some professional in some way, and then the goal is, okay, we're going to have this long-standing, you're going to just keep paying me for these services, and you may not be seeing any benefit. If I'm not writing a plan for someone, or if we're not corresponding, working through whatever it is, I try not to bill them. Sometimes it's set up automatically, and I need to go and make sure I cancel it for that month or whatever. And at the same time, I do believe in the whole like teach a man to fish kind of thing, and so my goal is that eventually someone goes on and either learns to coach themselves or coaches other people, and maybe they'll still pay me a lower rate to sort of review their training, but it'll be less hands-on and less time back and forth and stuff like that. So there are a lot of different models. In fact, there are some athletes that I've coached that either want to start working with me that I'm about ready to kind of take on, or have started their own coaching businesses, and I don't view it as like competition or anything else. It's I'd say it's kind of sad and pathetic, actually, because I've seen some stuff back and forth on social media recently where people are feeling that like it's kind of getting cutthroat and people are fighting over athletes, and it's just
there's
like
plenty of people.
Yeah, it is getting more saturated than it once was, but it's like the sport's not going to die, and if you're doing a good job, you're going to be able to. You have to adapt,
Right?
But I think that's what capitalism is, and if you're going to be a business owner, gotta buy into that a little bit. And
Right.
As communist as I tried to be in college, I figured out that you do have to pay bills. So or socialist, I guess I should
Right.
say.
Well, I mean,
we're in Utah, right? I'm
we-
gonna probably get shot, but
now we're far enough away. I think
Yeah,
we're good.
exactly.
But I mean, you make a good point, though. I think because we talk about it here, and we've had other small business owners, if you have a good brand,
Yeah.
or you do a good job, they'll come back.
yeah,
They
right.
will. They'll refer people.
Or then they'll refer people. But
Yeah.
if you've been out there doing it for a while, but maybe have been doing it half-heartedly or half-assed or whatever it
yeah.
is, they may look other places.
Yeah.
And that
Right.
is just a direct reflection on the services or the product you've been giving
Right.
them for some time. So
Yeah.
I think you make a good point. The sport we've seen, everybody's seen the growth in the sport. You see more and more and more quality runners doing amazing things, and they got to
Right.
come from somewhere.
Yep.
So I think what you're saying, makes perfect sense. And back at it too is coaches. You may be the right coach for this individual, but not this other individual.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we've talked about with other coaches on the show. We've got Ty
Right.
Draney on, and sometimes you don't have that fit, and so there's got to
Yeah.
be somewhere for them to go
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
has a different
yeah.
plan or perspective on it. So it's just shopping around. It's like
Yeah.
buying a car.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking for a while, but I think I should make a little shout out to Ty. Ty was the first ultra runner I ever met, and so
That's cool.
we went to the same college, Rick's College, but he was about 10 years ahead of me, and
He's old.
That means we're old.
he
Dang
doesn't
it.
look old though. I mean, he's
Well, when he
wears
shaves
it
that
well.
beard off.
Oh, he looks young.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we were running like an alumni relay or something like that. We went back and we're on the same team as our coach and stuff like that. And we happened to be on the same team. And that's when we met. And he was talking about ultras. And I was very early into, post graduating from college. And so I still wasn't ready to think about ultras. And
Right.
just like,
You're like,
do
what?
what?
Like, what is
You like that? That's fun. And it wasn't that long after that we bumped into each other at a cross country meet where our athletes were running against
That's
each other
awesome.
in Boise, I
Aw.
think.
That's
I was like,
cool.
hey man, I ran this trail race and it was actually like longer than the marathon. And I thought about you, and it was through him and some of the older guys like Scott Jaime and stuff
Yeah.
like that it totally mentored me through the whole process. I had no clue what an ultra even was or how to run on the trails or anything, and some of those guys, not that they're old, but
No, they are. It's
They are. That's all right.
no, but it's cool that the old guard. That's one thing that I think I wouldn't say I'm a different generation, but the younger group, I consider myself an older guy compared to
You're
some of the
like
young
that
guys coming.
middle.
I'm in the middle,
You're in the middle right now.
but it's something I want to see people my age and younger continue, like the mentorship part, and not just
Wow.
the monetization of mentoring, but the like actually
the
just
real
like
reason to
yeah,
mentor.
just like
right.
pull someone under your wing and be like, yeah, man, you probably should have eaten something while you were out there.
or you probably shouldn't run every weekend in a row that many
exactly.
races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, me and Joel, we talk about this almost every time we put a microphone in front of
Or
our
almost
face.
every time we run now.
Yeah, is the mentorship.
Right.
Yeah.
We've had, like, Rock Horton's been on.
Yeah.
And he's had one of my favorite shows because he talks about the guard before him
Yeah.
and then him. And so you do have these generational gaps. We kind of like the same crew, like the Jaime and the Draney, that kind of area is when it really started to take off in
Yeah.
my
Right.
book.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the people Jaime was one that got me into running, period.
Mhm.
Right.
And then, Ty was there and this group of people, but it's such a big thing right now is that mentorship. And it's not about capitalization. It's about, integrity of the sport.
Right.
Right. I think that's something that's big, and giving, setting people up to succeed.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Cause we did the Pro Zumi team with Jaime, and he was a mentor for so many. And Ian
Oh, yeah.
Torrance was there. He
Right.
was a mentor.
Ian, I moved to Flagstaff because Tommy was there, but because Ian offered me a job with McMillan. So
Oh, wow.
Okay.
and I've taken that model, and he could be like pissed off that he mentored me for 2 years and then now I'm doing it
Nah.
on my own. He was the first person to wish me happy birthday the other day,
Right.
like
Yeah.
he doesn't care. And in fact, there was a clause in the contract with Greg McMillan that, I couldn't compete for 2 years, and Ian went out of his way to say like, hey man, like he's not even in the same country.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Let
Like
this
he's,
one go.
he's a
He
good
takes
guy. I'm a
loans for
good guy.
payment.
And
Yeah.
I mean, he went out on a limb to help me out, and
Right.
and like those are. He would have shown up and helped me move my treadmill.
Yeah.
So.
He would have.
He
Like, it's so-
totally would have.
So there are guys like that like there's no ego whatsoever. It's just
Right.
like can I help that guy? I'm going to help that guy, and they don't think about getting it in return, and then they do, because people feel that, and
Right.
I will be loyal to Ian till I die because that guy is a true friend, and same with Ty and Scott and stuff like that. So
Well, I think there's two sides of it because you have that realm, right, where they just are there to mentor you. But I think some of the younger people coming in need to be open to being mentored
yeah,
Yes.
by listening to this sage advice that has been practiced and proven over the years without
Right.
thinking, no, that's not going to work for me, or what are you talking about?
Or
and I'm-
it's more, I want them to understand who came before them
Yeah.
and where the sport has come from and where it's at now. Or I love where it's at now.
Yeah.
I love it, but,
You
It-
kind of
it-
can be on a cusp right now, too, though.
well, there's so many people coming into the sport right now that might not have the same appreciation for, like, running up to the top of Ben Lomond, right?
yeah.
And understanding what involves being up there, your responsibility being up there. They just see social media and they're like, oh, I'm going to go up there and do that because it looks cool.
Looks really cool.
Right,
And
well-
I bagged a peak.
Exactly. Well, there's a lot more than just that, right? I mean, so many people came before you that help establish this trail, help establish the brands that support our sport now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where, like, you're like the middle generation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're going to be the next in line for mentorship, really.
yeah,
And
I-
carrying that flag is so important. And like Eric said, if the younger generation would just be open to it.
And I think that turns over because I mean, you look at it like where you come from and where I came from. If Scott Jaime, Ty Draney, Ian Torrance said a word to me, I was like, "You bet,
Yeah.
I need to wear a girl thong to run faster, Ooh, dude. What color? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I was. I was ready to absorb it because I knew where they came from. And I'm not saying that the athletes coming in now aren't that way, right? But I think it just needs to be. 'Cause
Well, it's such information overload now.
Well, it's information overload, plus there's more pressure.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
sponsorships. You need to run this, or if you don't run this fast, you're not getting X amount of dollars. And that
Right.
wasn't there for those guys.
No.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I tell you what, if you run that race, we'll give you 2 pair of shoelaces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then the shoes come at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, and I think there is even a sense of competition over sponsorships.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
And I've found now that I'm in Canada, some of my sponsors that are small, and pretty much every sponsor that I have a personal connection with someone, usually a founder or with the brand, whether it's First Endurance or
Yeah.
Ultra. Or
Robert
whatever.
Coons. Or,
Yeah. And that came through Scott actually. So I try to have a connection and know the people that I'm representing. But some of those brands are still so small that whether it's because of the cost or because of tariffs that exist between even here in Canada, it's hard to get a hold of some of the product. And so when I've just like briefly mentioning to some of the other friends that I have up in Canada that I run with, some people immediately like, hey, there's only so much in the pot here, and if I give you their contact, I'm not going to have a spot next year. You're going to take my spot. And
Right.
it's like, no, dude, I'm just looking for, a few opportunities, and if
I just
there's
want a
if
couple
there's a
gels.
spot on the team, yeah, exactly, yeah, and so some people it does get territorial, and
Right.
so it's whereas like you mentioned, you ask Scott, you ask Ian, you ask Ty, that generation, Scott Jurek,
Yep.
a friend of theirs, and Hal and stuff like that. It was before you could make a living at it, really,
Right.
and so they genuinely, it wasn't a condescending thing, and it wasn't this territory or competition. It was just like, sure, like. And I think that's the beauty of the longer ultra races is that you really do learn to depend on one another. Like that, it
Right.
strips you down. Everyone is exposed. All your vulnerabilities.
And everybody's
down there.
been there at
Yeah,
some point.
exactly.
So they know
yeah.
it.
And so you depend on the volunteers. You depend on the aid station, the medics. You depend on the trail builders, all of that. But it sometimes it takes literally burying your head in the sand, or something a little humbling in a race for you to realize that, my 10K or 5K PR in college isn't really going to get me to the finish line of this race. Like I've got to I need people to help
Right.
me get there, or I need to learn something
Yeah.
that I don't already know. So
So in Canada, if I was there, my number one sponsor I'd go after is Mr. Big Bar.
I don't know what Mr. Big Bar is.
When I went to college in
No,
Portland,
wait a minute. Is this
Okay.
candy or something in your
it's
pants?
a candy bar.
Okay.
So we'd go up to Vancouver to watch a hockey game.
Yeah.
And stayed with some friends, and they had a Mr. Big Bar. and I absolutely would die for one any day of the week. And I don't even know if they're that good anymore, to be honest with
What's
you.
in them?
I don't even remember. Chocolate, peanuts.
Yeah.
It's just Mr. Big Bar. It's in a yellow wrapper.
Sounds
they
like
have-
a Baby Ruth.
Yeah.
Kind of, but it's not.
Or-
That
yeah.
doesn't sound nearly as cool though as Mr. Big Bar in
Okay.
a yellow wrapper.
Dude,
So that
I
would be
mean,
my first sponsor.
I mean, you're after Mr. Big Bar.
I am. So come on down. And then the Toyota Celica.
Celica.
It's a Celica, but that's how they said it on the commercial in Canada. I thought Toyota had a new car. I was watching TV. The new Toyota Celica. I'm like, oh, they got a new car. It's a Celica. So I love Canada.
That's awesome.
It's a good place.
It is. It's nice. So
Yeah. I would probably go for Tim Hortons, and that's like their coffee shop, but it's the only place that makes donuts that I can actually eat and not get sick. So it wouldn't be a good sponsorship for me to have.
it sounds like a really good sponsorship.
So what's the deal with their donuts? What's so special about them?
I don't know, but it used to be that, when I was a teacher, I was pretty disciplined, but maybe once a year I'd splurge. We'd have a staff meeting or something, and someone would bring donuts and be like, it's been a year, I haven't had a donut. And you eat one and you're just like sick for the rest of the day
Yeah.
and never want to see another donut for at least another year.
Never been there.
Tim Hortons isn't that
No.
way.
Tim
like,
Horton.
And they make these things called Timbits, which are just donut holes.
Yeah.
But lots of different flavors, and
Okay.
and I think it's that the grease maybe is actually that day old rather than like weeks old or what.
Sitting in the bucket for
I
a
don't know
while.
what it is, but
It's
some-
vegan grease.
Vegan grease.
Yeah,
it's
vegan
Canadian.
grease.
It's caribou grease. Right?
Yeah, so it's
Oh my
it's got
gosh.
extra omegas
Baby
in it or
seal
something
grease.
like that. Yeah.
No, that's-
Extra omegas.
That's on
That's
the east
awesome.
side. Yeah.
But they also have food, and so they sell poutine and other like fries and
Say that
stuff.
again. They sell what?
Poutine.
What's that?
So it's
French
French
fries.
fries with gravy and cheese curds.
Say
We've had this
what?
on the show before. I've talked about this.
It is, yeah. I don't know how I haven't put on a lot of extra weight while being.
We
up
had a
in-
guy. Remember that? I said the guy from Oregon sent me a message. He ran Waldo, was driving home or something, and stopped and had poutine. I always say say it again.
Poutine.
Poutine.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I thought it was from the South.
You
I made
thought,
the
you thought it was
mistake.
Poutine.
No, I thought it was from. I thought it was from the South, and someone corrected me on the post. Said no, that's from Canada.
Right.
Which I'm all in, Mr. Big, and you
and
know,
poutine.
yeah.
Whatever,
Okay,
wherever
so-
you can get it. Yeah.
We were going to ask you about the run culture up in Calgary.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to talk about the food culture.
I know,
there,
right?
Because this is sounding pretty good.
It is some good stuff. I definitely have a weakness for
say cheese curds.
yeah, the curds are good. But if you
God.
if you put the you can get Montreal smoked meat on poutine as well, and so
What's
or-
Montreal smoked meat?
It's
Just
smoked
anything?
meat, but so it's
Like cow?
Is it?
yeah.
It like
I think
beef?
I think it's beef.
Okay.
But it's really salty and
All right.
savory.
All right.
And yeah, as a runner, I love salt and I love fat and carbs.
Yeah.
And, especially post run. So it kind of motivates me to run hard because it's going to be available and it's one of the most satisfying things to eat. So
Wow.
and one of the routes that I run regularly, the bike path near our home, you pass by a place that sells good poutine and
Little
Tim
poutine
Hortons,
cart.
and so it's just like, oh man, I've got to run somewhere else today. Otherwise, I'm going to stop,
You're going to get donuts
get some
Fill your
donuts.
hydration
and French
vest.
fries.
Yeah,
You fill your hydration. You got like French fries coming out the front pockets.
that's about how it is.
Yeah, see, that's the way to do it. See, I love this run culture up there.
I know. So talk to us a little about that. So what's the run culture like up in Calgary?
Really good people. I would say runners in general are just
Well,
good
they
people.
are, but
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about the trail run.
The trail run, I would say that because the Calgary Canmore area is so diverse and mountainous, most of what I would consider a trail growing up in Oregon, even the PCT and stuff like that, I'm kind of a sissy when it comes to trail running. Like I
Really?
won't go on some of the
Wow.
the,
So
the
they're
runs
just.
that
Is
they-
it technical? Is it
Super
they're,
vertical?
rugged.
they're like mountaineering and orienteering and ice climbing. Like
Right.
it's like, oh well, it's not really a run if you don't have to bring an ice pick with you
Oh no.
and crampons and stuff like that. And
Right.
I've run the last 2 winters like every single day with pretty big micro spikes, Catula micro spikes, but just the skill level is so much higher than what I have.
Okay.
Because again, I grew up
running dirt roads
Right.
in Oregon, and then track and cross country, which is
Right.
basically flat golf courses, as flat as you can get, so you can run as fast as you can. And then
Sure.
I've transitioned into it, but I wouldn't consider myself like a hardcore mountain runner.
Right, but I mean, you ran in Flagstaff.
Yeah.
So how would you compare Flagstaff to Calgary?
The culture.
Well, I mean, obviously the trails are gonna be different because you're basically
and
Canadian
desert.
Rocky Mountains, right?
Yeah.
Compared to
So
the southern tip of the Rockies.
So I still have a lot of friends and family in Flagstaff, and I really value what I probably value the most about Flagstaff is that it's one of the few places I've been in, at least in the U.S., where a runner is a runner. So
Right.
they have their bagel run on Thursday, and 210 marathoners will show up with sub 14K 5K runners, and Ian Torrance will be there, and
Right.
And Scott Jurek will show up, and
Right.
Hal Kerner will show up. So it can be the who's who, but so can the 50-year-old banker that
Right.
just lives in town. Everyone's welcome. I haven't experienced that anywhere else in the world. Like Flagstaff is really unique in that they've somehow tapped into the we're all runners, and
Okay.
at least one day a week we're all runners. That's really cool. Trail runners in Canada, from my experience, there is kind of this: you're either a trail runner or you're a road runner. And,
Okay.
And because of who I am, I want to be a runner. Like I
Right.
like running on the roads. I like running on the treadmill. If I can get a run in, I'm happy. You
Okay.
know? Sure, if it's a beautiful place, it's cool. And there are plenty of people that cross over between the two, but there is kind of this like, no, I'm only a trail runner or I'm only a road runner.
Right.
It's like, I think that's silly. So, that being said, there are some very good trail runners in the Calgary area. Adam
Right.
Campbell lives and trains in that area, and he's done quite well.
He's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard Rock and Chuckanut and
Yeah.
Ellie Greenwood
Yeah.
kind of rose to her heights while living and training in that area. She now lives in the Vancouver area, but
Mhm.
but she was in Banff and in the Calgary area. So if you want to become a good mountain ultra runner, that's a great place to train to be
Okay.
that. And there are some really cool groups. There's the Canmore Trail Culture, the Calgary Trail Culture. There's different groups that go out, similar to what I've experienced in Bend and in Flagstaff and,
Right.
and other places.
You said the access was pretty easy, right, from town?
Oh yeah. Calgary itself has, I think like 150 miles of trail,
Like dirt trail or bike
trail
path?
or urban bike
Okay.
paths. But still, I think it's one of the greener large cities in the
Okay.
world in terms of like, if you want to commute to town, you can.
Right.
When I did my taxes this last year, I had to do my miles. I was like, I've only driven like a fifth of the amount of miles as I drove the previous years because I don't drive. I ride my bike or I run almost
Right.
everywhere I go.
Wow.
And that's kind of the culture. We're not the freaks in our neighborhood or in the
Right.
community.
It's norm.
Yeah, you either take the train or you ride your bike. If you have to drive, you'll drive, but it's only usually if you have to bring
Something
a lot
big
of stuff
home.
for-
the
exactly.
groceries.
Yeah, and even that, I'll push the kids in a stroller, and we just go to the grocery store more often.
Right.
Like go grocery shopping with the kids and put them in the bottom of the stroller, kind of thing.
That
So,
sounds cool. I like that.
Yeah.
it is. So it's a very active community, and that's what I would say. Some people in Flag do the they call it skimo, I guess, in the
Right.
States, and then they call it backcountry or what's the other one?
Ski mountaineering.
Ski mountaineering, yeah.
Right.
So no, but there's one more that they. Anyway, so
Run
a lot of
day.
people in Canada are just athletes, just all around active people, and
Right.
so
Healthy.
yeah, exactly. One of the things that people say is that you need a house, but then you need a garage for all
Yeah.
your stuff,
For all
and
your
so,
toys.
It's very common for people to have kayaks and like 5 different types of skis,
Right.
and the rafters of our garage are kind of like that. With all our kids, it's like, okay,
Well,
we've got
yeah.
some cross country skis, some skate skis, some downhill skis, and I don't even ski. So these are all like my kids and stuff. I have one set of cross country skis, but if you're a Canadian, you just doesn't matter the weather. You just get the right
Do you
equipment.
have hockey sticks?
I have some hockey skates. I bought
Okay.
some hockey
There you
skates.
go.
Nice.
And I love it. Like it's one of my favorite activities now to do with the kids, but also just like
if there's a pond, if there is a body of water, it will be cleared and you can skate on it during the winter.
That's cool.
And then if there's a park or a golf course, it'll be track set to anywhere to cross country ski. So it's like people want to be outside as often as possible, and that's something that I haven't experienced in most places that I've lived.
Right. So is that a place you think you'll be for a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every winter we're like, so do you think we could get Canadian healthcare in Hawaii or something like that? Or does Hawaii or does Canada own any islands?
How much the time do you have to spend in Canada
to be considered
full-time resident, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so we love every season, but it does get pretty cold, and
it's long.
Yeah. But our, the event season when we're putting on races, it's spring, summer, fall. So.
Right. So how many events do you put on?
So Five Peaks is a company that Amy directs, and I just kind of help out with wherever I can, just so that she has more time for me. So
I like that.
Yeah, if a shipment arrives that we're supposed to distribute throughout the country, I'm the one that gets it and loads it in our garage and then figures out what to do with it.
Because you came from Hermiston background, that's what you did there, right?
Oh.
So our garage has now become the Five Peaks distribution center. So, yeah, so there are about 25 different events
that's a lot.
nationwide. So 5 different regions.
Wait a minute, you said nationwide. What's that mean?
Coast to coast. So BC, there we have a series in major population centers. So
Okay.
With it, we try to do it within an hour, and that's a cool thing about Canada is there is a lot of green space and not as many people, and so
Yes.
there's a lot of value placed in or investment in beautiful parks and stuff.
Right.
So we have 6 trail races in the greater Vancouver area,
Okay.
and 5 in the Calgary area that extends to Canmore.
Right.
5 in the Edmonton area, so 2 in the Alberta province, and then 3 in Quebec and 6 in Ontario, the Toronto area.
Wow.
And then we just launched a Nova Scotia
Ooh.
series. So
Really?
we're literally coast to coast. And
Nova Scotia looks rad.
yeah. It's called Around the Cape.
Yeah.
And it's going to be on Canadian Thanksgiving, so
when's
early
that?
October. We have to have Thanksgiving a little earlier because it gets snowier pretty much after that. So if people are going to travel, it makes it easier. I'm not really sure what the historical rationale is, but that's what I've been told.
Turkeys
there
go
gonna be-
inside in the winter.
Yeah, and I just find an excuse to have poutine. So I'm like, can we have poutine?
Is that what is for Thanksgiving up there?
That's what I've had every year.
Oh my
yeah.
I gotta
French
come
fries
Up.
for
I gotta come
Thanksgiving.
up, man. I'm gonna go up for Thanksgiving in Canada.
That's right. 'Cause that's right after the bear. 100.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
primed to eat a lot.
The good part is you can get it at McDonald's and at Wendy's
What?
and at Costco and it is you can get poutine anywhere you go, and Dairy Queen. Not that I frequent those.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, and they've got this one, and this is how much this is. If you get the
There
combo
is
meal,
There's a poutine app. Yes.
I've got 5 kids and we're on the road a lot, so I just
Poutine
make
for
sure I get a
everyone.
run in. Yep. Yeah. So I will treat you to poutine anytime you're up in our area for sure. So.
craving it right now. There's
Me
nothing
too.
around
I haven't
here.
had any breakfast or
We've got
lunch
a
yet.
lot of hash browns inside, so we'll go make our own version of. All we need is some gravy.
The American version.
But yeah.
So quite a few races, and so that's what you help with those as well throughout the. I guess that takes like a whole year, or spring to fall. At least.
In the off season, that's when we're working with finding dates and getting permits,
Right.
and working with sponsors, and just if we have to change venues or anything like that,
Doing
we,
all that
we
admin
set all
stuff.
that up and
Mhm.
keep the website updated, and then basically once the season starts, it's most weekends there's an event somewhere, and
Right.
we do have race directors in each region
I was
that,
about to ask
that
you that.
handle that,
Right.
and they have their own storage and their own trailers. And
Right.
I mean, the races usually have 3 to 5, or the events have 3 to 5 different distances or races,
Right.
from kids up to usually half marathon, and we do have a couple marathon or beyond races.
Mhm.
And so, and we try to pick venues that allow a few more people than beautiful, but still allow a few more people. So most of our events have 500 to 800 people. And
Holy cow!
it's pretty good size for trail running.
Yeah, it is.
And so, but that model works to employ those race directors and also
Right.
employ us, so to speak. So have a minivan, so we got to live the suburban life. So.
That's okay.
Especially with the Poutine punch card.
Poutine punch card.
Yeah, after
So
9, you get a
that's
free
what I
one
need
or
as a
something.
sponsor. I need to find a Poutine distributor. So
Distributor. That'd be awesome. That'd be the best.
There's got to be
sponsor.
like a national chain, like that's local, not McDonald's. No.
yeah,
That you
this
get
is
that poutine
this is
from.
the bad part. The best fries are Costco fries. They do Costco, and because they're hot, like just straight out of the grill or out of the fryer with gravy, and then you can pick the curds or.
You
my
get to
gosh.
pick your curd.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, it's amazing stuff. So as a kid, when we used to drive up to visit my grandparents, we'd go through Beaver, Utah, and always stop and get the Beaver cheese curds. So
yeah.
I've been a fan of curds ever since. So
So
Poutine's just the culmination
if
of all
we
of it,
came
so.
up to have poutine
Yeah.
and maybe run a race, what race should we do?
Yeah. What's the race?
Because the race is secondary to the poutine right now, right?
Which
Really?
race offers poutine at the finish line?
Yes.
That's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some in the Montreal area, and so that I believe the word is
Okay.
French, and so that's and they have the Montreal smoked meat. So we do
So
have
that's
some
the place
races
to
in
go.
Quebec, some
But
races
we
out there.
gotta speak French then.
Yeah, no, but
That
if
could
you
be a
came up,
problem.
you can get it anywhere, and most people are bilingual in
Okay.
Canada.
All right, good.
So I have had it after honestly every race that I've run, and it a couple times a week, most weeks. So
This is my guy right here.
I know, man. He's like slowly coming out of his shell with his poutine problem. It's okay.
Your phone's gonna be ringing
all
off
of,
the
all of
hook.
my athletes.
That's part of their recovery
yeah.
plan.
That's right.
I've never said I'm anti-carb or gravy. So
Or you signed up.
Gravy's a food
Food
group up
group.
there.
You have him as a coach. You get 10% off first endurance and 10% off poutine anywhere
right.
in the province of Alberta.
Yep. I
Yeah.
love it.
no, I grew up in potato country, so
Yep.
That's right.
I've got potatoes are
It's
very
in your DNA,
nutrient dense.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I worked in a potato plant. Don't recommend that for anyone, but it's hard work. So anyway, let's see. We put on a couple of races in Canmore at the Canmore Nordic Center, and that's where I ran my first race in Canada, and
Fell
and
in
was
love with the area.
blown away.
Place.
Like seriously, every second you see a different mountain
All right.
face, and
So what
and then there's
month is
beautiful
that?
water.
What's
So we've got one coming up in September.
That's not going to work for us.
Okay, there's another one in June of
Okay,
the
next
following
June's
year.
a good month.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then there's
Ooh, it's
another
cooler
race
up there.
Yeah, there is a race there on Thanksgiving Day.
Canadian
Wait,
Thanksgiving.
Canadian Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yes. So you could probably break away, and no one
Poutine
would
50.
know any. Yeah. So there's a race, and it's a really cool setup. It's at the Nordic Center. It's called the Grizzly Ultra.
Wait a minute.
I love the name of this already.
Almost. Are there bears involved? Is your son going to be there to chase away the bears?
Bear spray is required. So
my gosh.
but okay. So
Because you have poutine coming
Stuffed
out
in your little
stuffed
mesh
in-
bag,
in your
your
front
Ziploc.
pocket.
no, it's a really cool setup. Whether you're running your first or your 1000th ultra, but it can also be done as a relay. So there are 5 different legs, and it's 5 different
Like
fingers
loops.
of the claw of the grizzly.
That's so cool.
And so some of them are kind of just easy Nordic track loops.
Right.
They're still off road, and
And there are bears involved.
I'm not denying that, but
That's all right.
it's beautiful. And
Yeah. So what's the distance?
It's the
of this one?
definition of
so there's a 50K.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
the ultra, and
Right.
and I've run it the last 2 Thanksgivings. One year I was in shorts and a tank top and just like some bike sleeves,
Right.
and the next year I was in full on like puffy pants and and a jacket, and
Right.
like thought I would be peeling layers and just wanted to keep putting more on. So it snowed the night before.
Right.
in
And what
early
month
October.
is this?
It's usually the
Beginning
second
of October.
weekend in October.
October.
Second weekend. All right.
Okay.
So that's the Grizzly Ultra and Relay. Great event, and we aren't the hosts of that event, but it's at the same venue as the Nordics.
Okay.
the
But we
Canmore
want
Nordic
to come to
Center.
one of your events.
Yeah. We're doing another event in BC
right.
at the end of the summer, so pretty soon. So
Right.
maybe not this year,
It's
but
probably not going to be this year.
yeah.
But we're looking for next year.
Okay, that's called the TranSelkirks Run.
Ooh, I've heard of that one.
All right.
Yep.
So it's a 3 and a 5 day stage race, but it's all based
in Revelstoke, BC.
All right, that place is pretty.
It is really pretty.
Right,
So
Poutine
it's-
every single night, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you stay at the resort.
Oh,
and,
man.
So it's glamping.
Poutine Palace.
It's total glamping.
Oh, and they so
Did
so
you say Poutine Palace?
I did.
it is. It is.
Dude, that is your next business venture. That is what you need to call your food truck empire, the Poutine Palace.
I think that's a pretty good idea, actually. So the banquet each night will be at the lodge up above, kind of overlooking the river, the Columbia River below. But there's also a pub at the bottom that's part of the resort, and they sell really good chicken wings and poutine. And,
All right, we're there.
Yeah, so you guys should come up. It'd be great.
Selkirk.
TranSelkirks. So it's the
TranSelkirks.
Selkirk Mountains, and we partnered with Trans Rockies
Obviously.
to bring the event up
That
there.
event.
But we kind of changed the model a little bit because there are enough trails just in the Revelstoke area.
So you come back to the same spot every day.
Yeah, you either start and finish at the resort, or there are a couple where we drive you out to some
Right.
more mild trails, just to get a different look of the area. So you go from basically rainforest down in the river to really high alpine. And everything in between. And so, you may in one stage you may be going past really thick ferns to all of a sudden you're just exposed up there with the mountain goats.
So you said it was 3 and 5 days?
3 and 5 days.
So what's the
Yeah.
difference for the 3-day and the 5-day?
So the 3-day is 100K, and then the 5-day is 100 miles. So you can cover 100K in 3
days.
3 days.
Right,
and
so
then
20
a
miles
100
a day.
20 miles a day as opposed
Basically.
to 33 a day-ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are 2 really steep stages. The ski hill there is the ski hill with the greatest vertical loss in North America. So I think it's like 5,000 feet
Right.
from.
Is that a
from,
kicking horse?
It's near Kicking Horse.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's called Mount Mackenzie, I believe is that specific mountain.
Right.
And then. So we basically run up to it and then run the ridges and then come back down.
That's legit.
So
Is
it's
that part of the 3-day or the 5-day or both?
It's day
okay,
one.
so you can't get
That's
out
day
of it.
one, yeah. Yeah, but there's like extra poutine.
Yeah, yeah. You do go by. That is one thing about the aid stations there. Like at that, we used to have just one race there, and we used to have dark chocolate covered bacon at one of our aid stations.
God.
And so
We've been doing this wrong.
Yeah, come on.
Canadians have food down. That is one thing that I've learned to do is eat well, and I have no regrets other than, man, what was I doing for the first
Yeah, all right.
few decades of my life? So
What
No,
month is
June.
TranSelkirks is the last
June?
week of August.
Okay, August.
Into the first week of so it's like this year it's the 28th to the 2nd of
All
September.
right. We're very
yeah,
busy.
of
So
August.
next year. For
next
sure.
year?
for
That'd be
sure.
awesome.
It's a busy time, but we'd love to have you guys up there anytime.
That'd be awesome.
And
We're going to do that next year.
I know, right?
you guys,
For sure.
you guys would love it. I'm confident of it. It's fun. Like sometimes just putting on a race is work.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, it's
It
my
is
job.
work.
and I
We know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We've done it before.
Yeah, it's fun seeing the smiles
Oh,
on
yeah.
people's
It
faces,
is.
and
It's rewarding.
But it is
is.
rewarding, and it is part of that mentorship and that stewardship piece. You
Right,
can't just
giving
be the
back.
one getting all the time.
Right.
So I love that part, but sometimes it's just a slog. I enjoy going out and marking the course. I'm like, can I go up to the ridgeline? And like, I want to be that
Especially
guy.
up
Like,
there.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It is spectacular. So, the races that I'm most familiar with in their beauty, we try and do it from coast to coast, find the
Right.
prettiest places, but Canmore is to die for, and so is Revelstoke. So,
Okay.
and those are ones that I'm personally involved with. I guess.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And there we go.
So we've talked in the past about having like a Trail Manners meetup.
Yeah,
And
this is our goal
that's-
for next year.
That's
is
got to be one of them, the TranSelkirks for
Yeah.
sure. That sounds like fun.
that'd be a blast because what we want
How
to do
far
is
is that from Calgary? Because I imagine that would be the place where people can fly into.
No, it'd be Vancouver, right?
It's further from Vancouver than it is. It's northern BC.
Okay.
And,
It's northern BC, so you're going to fly into Vancouver?
No, so you could fly into Calgary, or there is a Kelowna airport, and it's kind of a regional airport, but you can get some international
Okay.
flights in there.
North of Spokane too, right?
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
Spokane would be another option.
yeah,
Come out of there.
yeah. You could drive up from Spokane.
Okay.
My dad actually rode his motorcycle up from Hermiston last year
Right.
to Revelstoke and white knuckled it the whole way, I guess. But I think it was a pretty long drive.
I'll just jump
for
on the
him.
back of the bike thing next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and so they were up there to help us with the kids so we could put on the event. But
Right.
it was a blast. And the resort's really nice and accommodating and affordable. Our goal was to make it the same price as TransRockies in Colorado, but you get to stay in a resort versus a tent. And so it was like,
Big, great place for
man.
your family, right? While you're out doing it, they could be.
And that was the thing. I mean, Amy and I have done TransRockies before, but it's like, okay, we have a newborn now, and that's not going to happen for a while.
Right.
And we know that there are other people in the same boat. And,
Yeah.
and a week is a long time to be away from your family, and it usually ends up being a week and a half. And so
Right.
if you can bring your family and run in the morning and then hang out at the pool during the day, where there's a
Exactly.
ton of fun, like it's one of the stages is the only sanctioned trail race in a national park in Canada.
Oh.
And so in
keep
Mount
adding to
Revelstoke
this
National
list.
Park, but
Yeah.
they have this really cool kids bike park that they just built where you're
What?
like going through like it's like a nature museum, but it's for
High
kids on
five and
bikes.
grizzly bears.
Yeah. So yeah, if you do, I would recommend flying into Calgary, and then the
Okay.
drive from Calgary, you go through Canmore, then Banff National Park,
Right.
then Yoho National Park, then Glacier National Park,
Jeez.
then Mount Revelstoke National
Yeah,
Park. And
see?
so it's kind of like, if you want to see a beautiful, like maybe the most beautiful stretch of highway
Ever.
there is, you're basically just driving through a national park
Okay.
the whole way there. I think it's 4 or 5 hours from Calgary. So
Right, but it's worth it.
it's a long drive,
that's
but it's
not
it's
bad.
it's considering what you're taking in and the
right.
diversity.
Because you're stopping. You're
Yeah,
like
yeah, exactly.
picking up your jaw the whole time.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we wanted and stopping for poutine every quarter mile.
There aren't many poutine shacks. That might be a business as well. Is like put a truck stop.
The Pootie Shack.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll pull one with my car, and I'll just pull aside the road in each national park.
You know how you go to a basketball game and they got the T-shirt gun? You're gonna get
Oh yeah,
a
I'll just shoot
poutine gun.
Because that's what Joel was saying earlier. Is we discussed this for next year's have a Trail Manners meetup where we select different races where we're going to go,
Right.
and then people that listen to the show that we've connected with through the year plus 2 years, they can go to that race and we can hang out with
Yeah.
people that we've wanted to,
Right,
and
exactly.
bring
And we
more
get to
people to that
experience
race.
like different events.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of just being here Utah based.
Because you know
which
how
have
it
great
is. You
events.
do the same race over and
Yeah,
over again,
yeah.
but there's so many cool places
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
races to experience.
That would be a cool one though.
I think that would be fun.
Yeah,
that
Holy
would be
cow.
awesome.
Yeah, we'd love to have you guys. And it's I think that's the best part about the sport. It is a great community, whether you stay locally or you can travel anywhere around the world, and you definitely share that bond.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can take in all that beauty in 1 day or 2 days is. There's really no other way of doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Most people, even if you're adventurous, and no one saw those air quotes.
Air quotes.
We do that all the time.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, even if you're to the rest of the world, you're considered active, and so to see what you see even in a trail 50K or 50 miler or 100 miler, you'd have to spend a week or more backpacking
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
section, and then you'd have to carry all your stuff, for a week versus, have a few drop bags and get it done in a day
That's
or
right.
two.
Go back
so,
to the pool and
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
That'd
Poutine.
be great.
yeah,
That's awesome. We're we got to check that out.
For sure.
TranSelkirks.
I
Yeah.
know.
End of August.
Come
End
on
of
up.
August.
That'd
Run
be
wild in
sweet.
Canada. That's our
Okay.
tagline.
Ooh, I like that.
So
Yeah.
Well, right on. So thanks for letting us know you're in town.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Got that. I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're all over that.
yeah,
I know.
thanks for making the drive. I don't really
It's not that
know much in terms
Yeah.
of geography, and figured we might be going through there, but I with this many kids didn't know what the
We're
plans
close.
were,
We're
so,
20 minutes,
yeah,
if
it's
that.
perfect.
Yeah, and the bus maybe an hour and a half, but yeah, 20 minutes. We could probably run it in an hour.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And
Thanks for having
letting
me.
us know on just all this great information.
Yeah.
Get to know you better. Some amazing stuff you've already done and continue to
Mhm.
do, and just great to hear the stewardship. The mentorship and
Right.
why you do this. To hear you talk about your coaching and
Right.
passing that along because you were in that same boat when you were growing up. It's
Right.
just
And
always
giving back,
refreshing. Yep.
Giving
Yep.
back as being a race director too.
Yeah.
That's
to
awesome.
cool and introducing people. Like you said, it's rewarding to see people run these races and.
Yeah.
So many people think, race directors, man, they make a fortune. Like, yeah, no, that's not how it really works in the real world. But thanks for thinking that.
Yeah.
Um,
Usually it's an excuse for race directors to have their friends come hang out and
Exactly.
pay for the beer,
Yep.
and have a bonfire. So yeah.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, it's awesome for
is.
coming on the show, and it's a pleasure to meet you in person.
Thank you, likewise.
We've checked you out for quite a while. So, yeah, I think that's it for today. We'll have some links part of this, but, yeah. peakrunperformance.com. That's his
Right.
coaching service. 5 Peaks Trail Running Series. TranSelkirks Run, which is going to get some research done. That
Yeah.
website's going to get a few hits in the next few days.
Yeah, exactly.
By us for sure.
Yep.
Checking it out more. But thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time out of your family vacation.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
thanks to your family as well for letting you
Yeah.
jump in the bus with a couple crazy guys.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks for having us.
all right. Well, we'll talk
Appreciate
to you later and hopefully see you again next August at least.
Sure.
We'd love to see you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Trail Manners podcast. We'd like to thank Jacob Puzey for taking the time to join us today. You can check more out with Jacob and his coaching services at peakrunperformance.com. We also want to encourage you to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Trail Manners, or swing by the website at trailmanners.com. There you can check out the store page for some cool gear, get some trail cred and some swag and rights. Or you can hit us up on the contact page, let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or if you would like to be on the show. Until next time, this is Eric Manning with Joel Hatch reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.